There it is, Sean. Intro music this week. Welcome to Blogz on Balls. Listening to Ben Karpinski and Sean Wilson. Your Tuesday show, 10 to 12, every single Tuesday, every single week. Sean, we got a really big show today. It's mostly rugby themed. Are you feeling the excitement?
I am feeling the excitement.
Okay.
And what is the music theme?
Today's music theme is 12-inch Tuesdays. You bet. So we got a lot of 12-inch house favorites from my old collection back in the days where I was a disc jockey. Yeah, we got lots of beats today, Sean. Coming at you like this. So we got mostly rugby. We've got the president of the Stormers Supporters Club of Gauteng. I don't know if that's his official title, but we're going to go on that for the time being. Mr. Julian Rod. We've got Keegan with our football as usual. And then we've got Sport Billy in the second hour. So strap yourself in, clear your diary, make a cup of coffee, Blogz on Balls for the next 2 hours. Thanks for joining us. Some relatively old school groove from out of there with sweeter sound. You listen to Blogz on Balls. We just got through our headlines. And now we're moving on to Simply Sean and his weekly feature where he basically whittles down what we can learn from a weekend of Super Rugby. Now, Sean, there were 7 games over the weekend, of which I picked 2 correctly. If there was a way of retiring from, not that I'm a pundit at all, not that I've ever deemed myself as a sporting expert in any form or matter, contrary to some people on Twitter's theories. 2 from 7. Look, it was a tough weekend in that the Reds. You wouldn't think they would beat the Chiefs away, but then history suggests otherwise. They did it. They got a bonus point. Brumbies, well, the Highlanders, I don't even think the word hapless applies to them. They're just so crap. 7 out of 7.
Yeah, no, they're horrible at the moment. You can just see the confidence is totally shot with the Highlanders.
God awful, just like soulless. Nothing's really happening there at all. Then the Kings did what I thought was going to happen anyway. They beat the Rebels. The Rebels still have never beaten an Aussie team ever.
Yeah, South African side. So that's now 11 games.
Side, yeah.
So it's now an 11-game streak for the Rebels against South African sides.
Dodge, yeah. And the Kings have never lost to an Aussie side in their short history.
Yeah.
Then in the other matches we had the Force beating the Crusaders. Again, an upset, but again the Crusaders' dodgy track record in Perth just carries on.
Something clearly happens there. Something clearly doesn't agree with the Crusaders playing in Perth and against that opposition as well, because there's been a couple of games when the Force have played in Christchurch that have not gone the Crusaders' way as well. I think there's something about the Crusaders brand that really pumps the Force up as well.
It's odd.
I was thinking at the time, you watch them play, it must be so frustrating sometimes as a coach. You see them and go, geez, if you guys played like this every week.
Yeah.
Well, maybe they wouldn't even have to play for the Force, who knows?
No, exactly.
Yeah.
And then in the other 2 results, we had the Stormers winning against the Sharks. Great result for the boys from Cape Town. And then the Cheetahs' run finally coming to an end when they lost to the Bulls. Again, tight game. Cheetahs get a bonus point, so good on them. Anyway, Sean, those are just the results. What can we learn from Week 9?
First of all, I think we've got to look at how tight the South African conference is.
Very.
And look it through. This is the first time there's ever been, at this stage of the tournament, halfway through, you can look at it and say 4 teams in with a big shot with the playoffs.
Yeah, without doubt.
And maybe even one little shock win from the Kings or so. And you might even not find them that far away from 6th. That is how close we're dealing with here. It's usually a 2 or a 3 horse race at this stage. I looked at the numbers, and we've got, at this stage, so now we're in round 8 for us. It's round 9 of the tournament, but round 8 because it was an extra Australian round.
Mm-hmm.
This time last year, there was 12 points, I think, separating the top 4, and there's 6 points this year.
Well, it's a crazy stat, that. I mean, it just shows that the guys are doing well against the opposition teams from other conferences as well.
Yeah, that's the thing. And it's skewed with a lot of derbies, of course.
Yeah.
And South African derbies are pretty tight. So you're not going to see many bonus point wins. There's not going to be many 5-pointers like there are in New Zealand. But countering of that, of course, is that the losing bonus points are there. So that just kind of edges it towards.
Yeah, the losing bonus point, the biggest underhanded compliment in sporting history.
Yeah, absolutely. So just look, this really has to be the most competitive kind of thing, and it's the most unpredictable by far that we've had. Well, in a sense, I mean, most of these South African derbies have gone to the home side as well, apart from the Kings against the Sharks, and in the first weekend of the season, the Cheetahs beat the Sharks in Bloemfontein. Otherwise, the derbies are looking at kind of home ground. I think that might be a bit of a running theme as we go towards the tournament, with the exception of possibly the Kings.
Yeah, I think the Kings, even though they are doing quite well, I don't think they're going to have the intensity for those local derbies. It's one thing putting it over those Aussies.
Well, geez, I don't know. I mean, they had the intensity to
Then
kind of
again,
keep up the tackles.
I've also
so, like,
banned myself from talking about the Kings, considering I get them so wrong.
I mean, I can see them being close games. I mean, I can see them falling on the losing side more often than not, with all due respect. But I can see the games being like close, and I mean, they'll be hard to break down. And the guys can tackle for 80 minutes. It's going to be pumping in Port Elizabeth these days after that tour, especially, and how the season's gone.
Just on that, quite touching that the fans actually came to the airport to see them home.
What a cool send-off
that
that
has
was.
never ever happened in Super Rugby history, I'm sure.
In this context as well, and like a team where they are on the log. I mean, that's just, it's just there's just so much happy making about the Kings.
Oh, completely.
But anyway, I'm not convinced. A lot of people look at the log and say that, well, it's probably going to look like a South African team is going to finish third because it's so tight. There's going to be, and the Chiefs could possibly run away with their conference, and with the Highlanders doing so badly, that kind of skews the point structure in New Zealand. And with the Australian conference, of course, everyone just thinks the Brumbies and the Reds were going to run away with it willy-nilly, and they're like real candidates to be in the top two, whereas the South African conference winner will have it in third. I'm not convinced about that yet. I think there's a lot of New Zealand derbies to come to even it out.
Sure.
People think the Chiefs will run away with it, but I mean, I think they've only played the Highlanders twice and the Blues once at home.
Mm-hmm.
They've still got still 2 games against the Crusaders. That's 2 games against the Hurricanes.
Exactly.
So there's going to be a lot of evening out to go. Don't make too many assumptions yet. We're only halfway through the tournament, believe it or not.
Yeah, well, look, the only assumption you can make is that the Highlanders will stay at the bottom. And I think that's the only thing you can actually say, because you're right. It is a lot closer than it has been in the years previously.
Yeah. So we might as well move on to that, to one of my points being the Highlanders. We're going to move on to it later. The record that they are setting is getting just unbelievable if we compare what we thought these guys would do at the beginning of the season. Well, actually, just compared with any New Zealand side, quite frankly. This was their 7th in a row. That makes it officially the worst start by any New Zealand team ever.
That makes an official case for a coach firing.
In a lot of instances,
any other league sport in the world, that coach would be at McDonald's right now flipping burgers.
In a lot of, I mean, we'll see. I mean, in rugby, it's not kind of like football. I mean, there's very few firings happen during the tournament.
Pat Lam last year for the Blues.
Well, they agreed that they'd part ways, but he kind of just fiddled out the last few games, you know.
Yeah.
So that's 7 in a row for the Highlanders. If they lose to the Crusaders on Saturday, I mean, what a fixture when you're in a bit of trouble.
Yeah, when things are going really badly, take on an angry Crusaders at Christchurch.
Absolutely. You know, the hits just keep on coming for these guys. That's going to be 8 in a row. 8 losses in a row. That's the worst. That will be the worst losing streak by any New Zealand side ever. It's just amazing when you look at that squad.
Did the Lions even do 8 in a row?
Yeah, there are a couple of seasons where before some fans smugly look at New Zealand records. I mean, well, there was the one season where the Bulls went the whole year without a win. That I know. It was in the old days
in the beginning.
Super 12.
In the beginning, they were terrible. That's when Victor, I think, played fly half, inside center. He played the whole team.
Yeah. It's like, so I mean, that's a straight 11 whole tournament bang. So that's going to take some.
Interesting.
Well, they're on track.
Well, there's a blog post waiting to happen. Worst streaks in Super Rugby history.
And the study of those teams, there we go.
Because I've totally forgotten how terrible the Bulls were.
Yeah.
They were awful.
And some of those Lions side, they must have flirted with 8 in a row. If not, I don't think they went a season without a win. I don't think they pulled that off. Maybe it even did. My memory might be failing me.
Anyway, sure. Let's get away from bad. Let's get away from bad runs. What's your next point on that?
Let's get away from bad runs and let's go on to good runs. And let's look at how the Australian Conference definitely isn't just a one-horse race.
Very interesting. For the first time ever, we always thought that wild card thing was stupid, right? What happens is that you get the leading conferences, so SA, New Zealand, Australia. So if you lead the SA conference, so the Australian conference, you're guaranteed a spot in that top 3. And invariably, the points of 4 and 5 were always higher than 3. Now you get a point. The Reds are in the top. Sorry, the Brumbies in top 3 legit. Reds are now 4th with more points than 3rd.
Yeah, that's right. And that's even taken into account, the Aussies have had that extra game in hand.
Yeah.
So in the opening week.
Come back to hurt
so you
them.
kind of have to skew 4 points off. It's a very complicated table to read this year, as we've decided to actually decipher it.
No,
so you kind of have to subtract 4 teams off every Aussie side, especially the ones in contention. But even if you do that off the Reds, they move from 31 points to 27, which is still ahead of the Sharks. So it's fair to say that our old conference structure of it being skewed, it's valid this year, and for a different reason, where us being on the kind of receiving end of teams, kind of misplaced. But the thing is, a couple of weeks ago, it really did look like a danger that the Brumbies could run away with this conference, and if you run away with the Australian conference, then you have a real prospect of being top of the whole thing.
Sure.
So, but now, with that result by the Reds, look, statistically, I don't think anyone's going to top that this year. The defending champions in Hamilton, you go there and get a bonus point win. I mean, that's insane.
I can't see it happen either. Yeah, I don't know. Again, this is the hardest year of all to call.
Yeah.
Everyone asks me questions. I have no idea what to say anymore.
Yeah. And then think of it this way: like the Reds have played their 2 New Zealand games. Everyone from Australia and South Africa plays 2 games in New Zealand. The Reds have done them both. They've won them both with bonus points.
Yeah.
10 points haul from your New Zealand leg. That's hectic.
That's phenomenal.
So I mean, they're really in this. It's the Reds Brumbies this weekend in Brisbane, and it looks like we're going to have Reds top of the Aussie Conference.
I'm going Reds, but don't take my opinions too seriously. What's up next, Ron?
What's up next is that some Super Rugby fixtures have a pretty quirky, consistent history when it comes to upsets.
Right. Yeah, I love this point in your post.
We all touched on earlier. I mean, everyone was going mad about like how they just couldn't predict these wins, how their Super Brews are all dying. Incidentally, I think you guys can keep that to a minimum sometimes. I think people share a little too much with the world how bad their Super Brew is doing when some of us are just trying to enjoy an upset, quite frankly.
Exactly. And I'm going to get into this sometime soon, how Super Brews actually killed my rugby mojo.
Yeah. But looking at some of these upset results, right? So the Crusaders losing to the Force. That's 8 times the Crusaders have played the Force, and they've failed to win on 4 of them. There have been 2 draws and 2 losses. That's probably one of the worst records the Crusaders have against anybody.
Well, as an outsider looking in, that's a good derby then.
Absolutely.
That's a good matchup.
Absolutely. The Reds beating the Chiefs, a lot of people were surprised by that. That's the 4th time they've done it in a row, and 3 of them were in Hamilton.
That's crazy. I had no idea about that stat.
So, I mean, they've never lost to the Chiefs since Ewan McKenzie's been there. So, I mean, that's a hectic one. We touched on last week how we didn't think the Kings were upset. We didn't think it was an upset, the Kings beating the Rebels, really. No. Certainly on form.
We both called it, yeah.
We were a bit shocked that it was given a 3-1 by some of the bookies that the Kings would win. I thought that was far too generous. But then again, there's a historical precedent there as well. As we said, the Rebels haven't won against any South African side.
Yeah.
And that's been 11 games. And a lot of teams that have played them haven't been that good.
The Crusaders lost the Rebels last year.
Yes, they did. So the Crusaders now have a banana peel thing against
like
Australian
the Salvation
sides.
Army of rugby with these results against these lower hangers.
Just evening it out. I mean, that's the Force Crusader result is a result that all South Africans, apart from maybe the odd Cape Crusader, should be ecstatic about.
I thought the same thing, yeah. Definitely helped the Stormers. Look at the log now.
And some people, I mean, look, I didn't think it was an upset. The day that we regard a Bulls winning a derby at Loftus as an upset, then like we're living in a very weird world, you know. I think it was evenly matched at best, that game, you know. But the Cheetahs lost that. The Cheetahs have never beaten the Bulls at Super Rugby since they've had their own franchise in 2006. And that's 10 in a row. They've got the markers on them, you know. That's
10 in a row, wow.
10 in a row, that's hectic. So, I mean, in Bloemfontein, that's going to take a hell of a thing to turn around. So, anyway, the point being, there is some consistency. This tournament has history. It throws up fixtures that you don't think will work in a team's favor, but it does most years, more often than not. So,
and Sean, the point being here is that if we ever go into predictions for the weekend ahead, you are doing them, not I.
I'm doing them.
Yes,
I'm doing them.
You've just shown your pedigree right there by researching things.
There's history against these things. Last point I want to bring up, which I thought was a little interesting on the week for how it can be maneuvered, is, well, I titled it, "There's definitely an opening for a scandal called Concussion Gate."
Yes, I love this point because I tell you what, people will start abusing this quite soon.
There's worth thinking about. We haven't seen many of the concussion bins, the law being, I think it was before the end of year tour last year that these were being reintroduced to, to Southern Hemisphere sides at least.
Very necessary, yeah.
Yeah, very necessary. I mean, we all applaud it. And it's scary to think how many concussions have gone on the go unabated and just untended to down the years. But now, hopefully, we don't have to think about that kind of logic anymore. You're suspected of a concussion, you go off the field, and I think it's 5 or 10 minutes, and it's treated like a sin bin. So you can rotate that substitute if he's deemed fit to play after his concussion check, kind of like a blood bin. But what happened, and there haven't been many of them that have happened up until Saturday, when there were 3 that happened to the Stormers in the first half alone. Now, I'm not saying anything untoward was happening, but that was a lot of... One of them was checked by the referee. So 2 guys, the medic said, I think it was De Koksteenkamp and Gary van Aswegen, no, we want to get these guys off the field, just have a little check, make them count to 10, whatever they do. You know?
Yeah.
But then Dion Fourie was looking a little wobbly, and the referee said, no, I want you off. There was no medical attention at all. And then he was the one that was deemed not fit to come back on. But I'm thinking there's just so many rooms for possibility here. You think of the way that Rassie Erasmus used to rotate the injured props.
Yeah.
You think about Bloodgate that happened in England a while ago to bring a kicker on. And how easy is it to fake that you could be concussed?
Well, exactly. It's like a sore stomach back in school days. No one could prove you wrong.
Absolutely.
You were homesick.
Yeah,
When?
just dizzy around a bit. Claim you see stars. The odd pink elephant. There's lots of room for people to think cynically here.
Sean, as always, your critically brilliant mind is making rugby more laughable by the day. Is that it for your...
That was it. That was your 5 that we learned in the week. There was plenty more. To learn, but those are the 5 top points.
If you want to read the full post, you can go onto the bounce.co.za. Sean's still experiencing a few problems with his blog, so you've got to read Sean's writing. It's quite good. I say quite good because I always wax lyrically over it. I'm trying to tone that down a bit. So that's Sean's writing. Every week he writes that piece, and every week I learn a lot more. Doesn't seem to help my super breather. Anyway, we've got Steamos now with 2 million ways. 12-inch Tuesdays coming back with a vengeance here. And after that, we got a discussion with Julian Rod, all about the Stormers, and are they doing as well as they could be? Superman lovers with Starlight, that's how we're getting the show off today. Sean, were you a fan of the big 12-inch edits back in the day? In your partying days?
Oh, there was no need to edit the 12-inch for me.
Yeah, I was digging around music collection last night, as I always do. What do I have for the show? I've got to keep it fresh. I've got to keep it interesting. And there's a couple of tracks I haven't heard in so long. So that's your music instead for today. But of course, you're here for the sport. We're going to open up with our headlines for the week. Sean, Springbok training squad was released last week. We didn't really say much about it. Of course, it's the sort of first draft, so, people will change, people will get taken in and out. There'll be injured box that'll be in the mix, coming back, that kind of stuff. But it looks like Bismarck will be ready for the first test.
Well, the reports were saying that he was contributing more in practice than expected, and he was looking like so the first test might be a possibility for him. But
he must be missing rugby so much.
Ooh, he wants to get stuck in, surely, because he got injured. He got injured against Argentina last year. I think in the opening game of the Rugby Championship.
The first 10 minutes at Newlands.
Yeah, and André Strauss has been playing well. Adriaan Strauss has been playing well, so he needs to. So he really want to impose himself there.
Well, exactly. I mean, just think, you're out all this time. You have been the one and only hooker, and now you're out. Adriaan Strauss is doing well. The team he leads is doing well in Super Rugby. He must be salivating on that field. It must be like a rabid dog.
Absolutely. No, it's something to get really excited about for everyone, as the Springbok squads always do, really, even when they're preliminary.
Exactly. The first press conference around Springbok thing, there's speculation, there's stories, it's all happening. And it looks like Brian Abana took a full part in the training as well. Yeah,
that seems about like 5 or 6 weeks ahead of schedule from his injury. So that's
it looked like 2 months. And what, it's been 4 or 5 weeks?
Yeah. I hope the recovery's all gone great.
Well, someone told me a while ago that with the really good sort of professional stars, the recovery time is always less than they think because they apply themselves that much better. Like you think, area professionalism covers absolutely everything, even an injury. So good on Brian for getting back on his feet, so to speak.
Also, I think as the sports fans, we get a little guilty of we want a deadline for the injury and they want it to be set in stone.
Yeah.
Like milk, it goes off on this date. We hear that someone's going to be back in 10 weeks' time. We think 10 weeks' time. When it takes longer than 10 weeks' time, we get angry. And when it takes shorter, we're like we're surprised, but it's just sometimes recovery periods vary, and we must bear that in mind sometimes.
Well, exactly. Speaking about injuries pertaining to the squad, Jan Vermaak is out, and young Kobus Reinach has come into the team. Now, I'm quite happy about that. Obviously, not happy about Vermaak's injury, but I think Kobus has been fantastic for the Sharks. Really, really live wire scrum off.
Absolutely. This time last year was the area where we were looking a lot lighter than we were. Yeah. We were looking at Francois Hougaard and Jan Vermaak, and we knew Rowan Pienaar would come back from Ulster. Yeah. And this time last year, Piet van Zyl made the...
Did he?
Yeah, Piet van Zyl was in one of his first training camps, or the first squad against England, I think. And now you're looking at Kobus Reinach coming into the picture. I think he's a very exciting scrum half. Some people... Piet van Zyl has improved his game since in the year. There's still like some Nick Groom, who had a bad game last week, but he'll still be in the mix in the future.
In the future, for sure.
So there's a bit more. I remember us getting annoyed when Francois Hougaard moved to wing last year, thinking, well, the cover at scrum half, the experience cover up of scrum was a little bit low. Possibly it's not the way to think. But this year it's a little more exciting in that area.
But I also think, our scrum halves don't get a chance. Like, Pienaar, I think, is a safety net. Hochart, I think, he was given that chance, didn't quite perform, but they kept him there because they just didn't have faith in anybody else. And I think we've got a great young stock of scrum halves coming through.
It's such a focused position the way we play as well, with so much happening around the fringes and kicking that needs to happen around the fringes.
Yeah.
There's just so much of it rotates around the scrum half. It's hard to be a young scrum half and come through as a Springbok.
Well, exactly. It's hard to be a young scrum half and keep your style of play, which got you to the point of prominence.
Absolutely.
Because you're going to just, your roles are much more limited. Anyway, of course, we'll obviously get back into the rugby each week. We're getting closer and closer to the junior internationals. And with that, you'll see a lot more Springbok news and action on the show. Sean, bit of a sad story, the Boston Marathon blast. You've been following the story of the week.
Yes, I have. I hit the news last night, like a lot of us. What can you say other than tragic? I mean, I know there's bombs going off all over the world, and a lot of people. There's been a lot of criticism around. Obviously we should mourn every loss of life in this kind of scenario, completely. Not just in the sporting arena. But I think why a lot of us just get really caught up when it's in the sporting arena is that's supposed to be our outlet away from this.
Exactly, our sanctuary, yeah.
We escape this. We escape bad news stories getting into sports or stuff that's horrible in our lives by sports. But just to see it on our news pages in the sports section is just... It's just that galling.
Yeah, sadly, three dead and a couple of critically injured at the moment. So, well, we'll see how that story goes. On to football. Naturally, we've got Keegan Krug coming today. Because of our new scheduled discussion with Julian Rod, the Stormers supporter guy, Keegan will be a little bit later in the show, if that is your favorite part of the show, and you normally listen just for that. He'll be closest around 10:50. But one story I thought was quite interesting is Paris Saint-Germain, the now cash flush. Do they have oil money or something recently?
Yes, there's some petrodollar funding in that club.
Yeah. Surprise. Anyway, they're pretty confident they've got Wayne Rooney for next year. They seem adamant that $25 million dollar or pound, I don't know. See, I can't even read these stories properly. I pick up keywords. Apparently, 25 million of high currency has been offered.
Lots of money. Lots of money
for Rooney. And the part of the story I like the most, this person who broke this news is a former director of the club who just happens to own a media company.
There's no conflict of interest in this story whatsoever.
Wow, talking about breaking news, yeah.
You can never. So much transfer speculation in Britain is run by the tabloids. If you follow British football, and that extends into Europe, especially when such high profile, such money is being floated around, and we know people can afford it. It's no longer a question of money being bandied around. It's a question of if guys want to come in or not when it comes to clubs like this. So who knows? I don't know. It reminds me a little bit of Manchester City trying to sign Kaká a few years ago. I think they were offering him around about something silly like £300,000 a week. Another number that just exceeds. But a lot of these guys just use it for the publicity stunt. And Paris Saint-Germain, but they're getting some stars in Paris Saint-Germain, so they will be pretty determined to be a force in Europe.
Well, look, they were pretty handy against Barcelona in the semis, the quarters as well. So, well, look, we'll touch on that story more in depth with Keegan. Next up, green pool for the SA Swimming Champs.
What is going on here?
It is diabolical. I mean, we all know these guys are in some financial problems, and being a swimmer isn't that great if you're outside of the top three, so to speak.
But we got to get a whip round for some chlorine these days,
exactly.
Just pass a hat round.
A little bit of Blue 52. We can have a Glomel product placement, even if
absolutely. The kind of ads that were keeping us awake at night during the Masters could have solved this problem.
But it was quite funny because Roland Skuman actually tweeted a picture of the pool, to which Trevor Immelman replied, "Is that for Masters Week? That is green." Terrible. Look, another sporting soccer headline. Keegan's changed us. Have you noticed this?
Yeah.
Man City and Wigan into the FA Cup final. Now, FA Cup finals is quite an interesting one because it's a bit of a romance story between the underdog and the favourites, but Man City, all they've got this season is this trophy. I don't see them losing that.
One thing about the FA Cup that it's proved in the last kind of decade is that you take a team like Manchester City that was been out of it for years, and you can argue that they've never really been in the kind of elite for a sustained period of time in the history of English football.
The club.
Yeah, but a couple of years ago, but just to get on the mark, all the money comes in, then the power squad comes. A lot of them use the FA Cup as a kind of springboard to getting used to winning trophies.
Sure.
It was the same with Chelsea a couple of years ago.
Good point, yeah.
So, even though they were winning league titles at the time, it generates a culture of trophy winning and stuff. Whereas you find clubs like Manchester United, or even to an extent Liverpool down the years, have just they have other focuses than the FA Cup.
Sure.
Even though Liverpool haven't won anything, I think it's fair to say that a lot more energy goes into that tournament by new kind of franchises and new images, should I say.
Sure.
I use the word franchise for when it just gets this huge influx of cash in football to use it. So So, I mean, well, I'm definitely backing City for that final.
Final 11th of May, but we'll touch on that again with Keegan later. We're talking about injuries at the top of the headlines. More importantly, Stormers' injuries now going forward to their tour. They've got a bye this week.
Yes, that's correct.
Right. And then they take on the Hurricanes. Now, when they take on the Hurricanes in the Cape Town, they will have Scarra and Tabeni back, Alstad's back, and obviously Habana's back.
I don't think it's in the Cape Town. I think it's in Palmerston North, or whatever the other secondary stadium is there.
Rough.
So
they're taking them out into the countryside.
Yeah, one of those parks. Yeah.
Oh, rough. And then the game after that, they're playing the Blues, and it is rumored that Ibn Elizabeth will finally be back in the blue and white.
Well, boy, hasn't he been missed as well.
But now,
well, I say that, hasn't he been missed? But I mean, there's been some good performances by Steenkamp and Becker.
Yeah, they've worked well as a unit, but there's no doubt we need another behemoth in there. But now the next question is, will he be able to play a game of rugby without getting a yellow card? No, I'm not saying the negative sense. You know how worked up he's going to be. Talk about Bismarck missing out on the action. Elizabeth hasn't blitzed someone, in a legal sense, since last year.
Jeez, that's a bit harsh. It's funny. Elizabeth just kind of lives on this reputation, even though he hasn't really acted out in an angry way.
Oh, no, completely. I mean this in a completely legal enforcer role. Yeah.
No, but it's interesting how it's just everyone kind of buds on this as the new Buckies, and there's a kind of disciplinary angle towards labeling the new Buckies, but he hasn't really acted out on it. I mean, what was his disciplinary record last year? Not headbutting someone that got cited.
Yeah.
And he got where he got a suspension for, which was ridiculous. And then he got cited for eye gouging, which is always a serious offence. And then we looked at the incident and went, there's absolutely nothing in this. But still, that kind of reputation swings with you.
But I think it's sad that people take the negative of that. Like, I always thought Bucky's a hard guy. Okay, a couple of incidents here and there, but no, he's perfect. It's a bit as well. He's just a hard guy, and that's what you want in rugby. It's a contact sport.
Yeah, I mean, some were hard to defend, but some were just the kind of reputation preceding them.
Okay, well, maybe I'll sort of take back my opening salvo with that. He's a good player. I love the angle he brings to the game. And that, against
even
the Blues,
money on him not getting a yellow card.
Yeah, I feel sorry for the Blues tight five or anybody who gets within his grasp.
Ooh, Ali Williams versus Eben though.
Ali Williams
might make a concession.
Ali Williams may want to save himself for that game.
Yeah.
Of course, we have to talk about Adam Scott just very briefly. What an amazing final round of the Masters. Did you watch it?
I did. I watched a lot of the Masters.
I stayed up until just before 2. Like, it was quite boring in the beginning because none of the contenders are really that exciting. I mean, Brent Snedeker, come on. The blind behind you is more interesting.
And where did this Leishman chappie come from?
Exactly. Another Aussie came out of nowhere. And, call me a bastard, but a part of me wanted another Masters to go by without an Aussie win. Because it's nice to have that stat. SA have won all these, Masters. Aussie's never won one. But if there was ever an Aussie to win it had to be Adam Scott. Such a great guy. So likable. I think he's a very popular champion, and he was just so gracious when he choked horribly, let's be honest, to Ernie in the Open last year. So, I think there's definitely karma in sport, and I think the deserved winner came through. But Angel, what a legend!
Oh, what a legend! That was and what a nice touch there at the end with the thumbs up. I thought I was just golf at his best, really. I thought the interesting thing about Adam Scott, his choke has been well documented last year, and how he bounced back from grace has just been great. But hearing him speak in the week, he was saying that. A lot of people were saying because he just can't get over the line. I think there was another runner-up position that he had in a major in his life.
He was a runner-up in when Charles Schwartzler won.
Yes, of course.
Masters, yeah. Him and Jason Day were runner-up on that one as well.
So a lot of people thinking about Adam Scott before this Masters win, he just can't get it over the line. He's just there's a mental block here that he just can't get over. But he was saying to himself that getting in those scenarios was proof to him that he can win these.
Sure.
As opposed to the other way around, where we sometimes think of it in this country is you see a person get in the position, but then they can't get over the line, equals a choke. They're a choker. They're going to have this forever, But Adam Scott sees this. Well, if I can get in this position, I can just forget about the scenario and carry it through.
Yeah. So, all I can say is Proteas 2015 Cricket World Cup on the back of Adam Scott's victory.
Yeah,
they're going to win. Final headline, and I think it's a headline because again, media and sport and. On Sunday Times front page, Oscar goes out jawling.
Yeah, right next to the article of residents complain about dog poo.
You know what, Sean? I've made my viewpoint on the whole Oscar thing quite clear. I'm not a fan. I think I think justice should be served in this matter. Someone is dead. We're not going to get into that. But I think this is so lame from the media. Oscar has not broken any rules here. He's not broken any laws. He went out, right? He's going to commit suicide if he stays at home. So obviously he's going to go out because he's 26 years old. He still has friends, I would imagine. He wants to go out. So the media jumping on this, like, oh, how can you do this when you're meant to be grieving? The guy's grieving. No, say what you want about him. There's no way this isn't affecting him. Like, I think it's just such a try-hard story, this.
Look, the only thing I want to follow with the story is how justice is being carried out. That's the only thing I want to follow.
Completely. This isn't jeopardizing the case.
Yeah.
Ugh, it's so desperate for news, these people.
It's cheap.
It's very cheap. It's very, very cheap indeed. I'll tell you what's not cheap, though. The next track on 12-inch Tuesday. Groove Armada, Sweeter Sound. I was a big fan of the Deep House in the day, Sean. We're coming back with Sean's What We Learned from Round 9 in Super Rugby. "12-inch Tuesday." That's the theme of our music this week. Getting flashbacks here, Sean, of days of my DJing prime. Hands in the air in various places of the country.
Really? I'm getting flashbacks of being turned down by women.
Yeah, the only reason I got turned on by less women because I was actually DJing at the time. Anyway, enough for the flashbacks, especially the R ones, which are quite dodgy. We're going to give Julian a call right now. Oh, hang on a second. Let me try to pause that. That's good. Maz, I'm getting some feedback here. Is that normal? Sorry, that is cool, huh? This is the part of the show where what we do is we try to phone somebody, and unlike Skype, we can't have them in the background. We basically got to phone them up. Oh, that's nice. Okay, so here we go. Dial tone. The next voice you hear will be Julian Rod. It's just a bit awkward if these guys don't pick up. Hello?
Hello?
Julian.
Speaking.
Great stuff. Hi, Julian. Ben and Sean here from Blogz on Balls. How are you doing today?
Hello, Ben. Good to hear from you. Thanks, and yourself.
Yeah, great. Julian, I was going to give you an intro. Whenever I have guests on the show, I get very nervous about intros because, well, they're easy to cock up, and secondly, you don't want to come across too strong. You also don't want to undercut somebody. So would you mind just giving us just a little background as to who you are? And I suppose one thing I can say is that you have a lot in common with Sean and I, in that we are all three big Stormers fans.
In Gauteng.
Oh, that's good to know.
In the Gauteng, yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, that's good to know. Ben, basically, I run a supporters club, a Stormers Western Province supporters club up in Johannesburg, Gauteng. We've got just short of 2,000 members.
Okay.
We're an independent club. We're not affiliated or endorsed by anybody.
All right.
I originally was part of what is termed the official Stormer Supporters Club, but I had reasons to go on my own. I actually chatted about that to you before, and you know the reasons. I don't know if you want to hear those on at the moment. I don't think it's relevant.
Well, Julian, I suppose that the real reason that I wanted to bring you onto the show today is because Sean and I mean, we love our rugby, we really do, and I think we know a fair amount, but people are used to hearing our views on it, and every now and again, especially when you got some sort of something you want to vent about, it's nice to get a fresh sort of take on things. Now, my biggest thing with the Stormers, we can go right into it, because sadly we can only give you 10 minutes today, but after chatting to you yesterday, I'm pretty sure 90 might suffice. But no,
possibly.
My biggest issue with the Stormers right now, okay, now I'm a sporting romantic. I'm all about teams doing really well and capturing the imagination of the fans. My biggest thing is that the Stormers, 4 or 5 years ago, they weren't doing particularly well. Then they sort of got onto this more defensive line way of playing. They started winning. And winning they did, and they finished the conference. They won the conference title twice. They've been very promising. They've had a really great pool of young players. A couple of key ones are now getting stronger, gaining more experience. But yet the team itself hasn't really evolved in a playing sense. Now, a couple of things keep proving this true in my mind is that we keep getting injuries. This is something that we need to look at. I know it's a contact sport, and I know shit happens, so to speak, but there must be a reason behind it. And another thing I want to know is that why are we still so defensive when it's been proven in all levels of rugby that defense will not win you anything? People will have cliches like defense wins you a World Cup. Well, the Stormers are not a country. They'll never play in a World Cup. They're playing in Super Rugby. It is a dynamic, energetic, fast-paced game. So I think that's my major gripe with that. Why are they not improving? And then I look into someone like Arsenal to think that how they've stagnated. And they've always been there and abouts, but now the bottom's kind of falling out of that. And my biggest fear, being an Arsenal fan myself, I know I suffer many burdens in life.
Shame you got a double whammy.
I know. My biggest fear is, are we at a point where something is just fundamentally not happening with the side, whether it be the structure, administration, whatever it is, what is essentially not making these guys any better, because they can only stay on this level for so long and people are starting to pass them by. So I'd like to open with that, and if you can kick on from there, I think that's pretty much the crux of our discussion today.
Perfect.
Okay.
Hello?
Yeah, hello.
You there?
Yeah, Jen,
Okay,
so what are your thoughts on that?
Okay. Look, the record speaks for itself. If you look at a team that scored one winning bonus point in, I think it's now 25 games, just not on. I mean, it's ugly rugby. It's boring. It's defensive. It's predictable. Teams have worked out our systems. We've got one weapon in the forward pack. That's our rolling maul.
Yep.
If it doesn't work, we at a total loss. Against the Crusaders a couple of weeks ago, we had 2 or 3 opportunities to win the game. Tried the rolling maul a couple of times, didn't work, and the guys were absolutely stumped. They didn't know what to do at the end of the game. Whether it's a management issue, a coaching issue, the issue to me is that people at the top need to actually start listening. They don't have all the answers. They need to be a little bit less condescending to people like you and I, and the dozens and dozens of supporters out there.
I think you had a decent point there, Julian, on the condescension towards the kind of supporters around when they're asking like valid questions. Yeah.
Now, Julian, just want to butt in on that one there, but people say there's a whole thing about winning rugby, and I think you touched on the point in our original discussion that the Stormers or the powers that be are happy with winning rugby, but now there's a big price behind this. As soon as that winning rugby, that plan A essentially, doesn't work, then now we've got losing rugby and ugly losing rugby. So we've gone to a point where, okay, cool, but now when that goes away, again, I'm going to bring Arsenal into this because they used to play very good football and win big games. That hasn't happened, and now they're in a really bad spot. The fans aren't happy. So when the fans aren't happy, then unruly things starting to happen. And I'm not saying because they're defensive-minded, all the other stuff's happening on the sidelines, but I think it's a precursor towards the more unsavory aspects. So to be sort of coy about the fact that we're not scoring tries, I think is quite, naive towards the greater mindset.
Well, it is, and people don't want to watch, as you say, boring, predictable, unimaginative type of rugby.
Yeah.
I get a rugby game. I want to see some excitement, some action, and things like that. When you've got people running the show who tell you that when you ask a simple question like why, the question in fact that you asked a few minutes ago, why are they playing such defensive rugby? When I asked that question of senior management at Western Province Rugby, I was told, well, do you want winning rugby or do you want running rugby? My answer to them is, well, at the moment we're getting neither. We're not winning anything. The Conference Cup is somewhere behind maybe a Craven Week Cup in terms of importance. You're not going to see the team having a ticker tape parade for winning the Conference Cup, and they're certainly not playing running rugby. So, yeah, what is the answer? Decisions that are made on the field, like the other day when Becker was pulled off the field with 30 seconds to go. What was the thinking behind it? Is it not important to them that we avoid giving the Sharks a bonus point? That's going to come back and bite us at the end of the season. It's just those kind of decisions that are made. I've got dozens and dozens of emails from people asking why things are done. People saying they've requested answers from Western Province Rugby management, be it on Facebook or by direct email, that they don't bother answering because they, for whatever reason, maybe they think they're too high and mighty. That's not for me to say. But yeah, there's this whole sort of old boys club, and we're going to do it the way we want to, and regardless of what you guys want. And I think guys are getting to the stage where they've just had enough of that.
Julian, Julian, one aspect that I want to think about in terms of the board and how the coach rannings at the Western Province Union and with the Stormers, when Rassie Erasmus left for the Springbok Post a couple of years ago, when his position was the director of rugby, we've criticized it on the show. Well, not criticized the show, we just find it a vague position at times, but it's to kind of go between the board and the players, and for look towards scouting, etc., and to get your scouting systems in place for the young players. Now, that position hasn't been fulfilled since Erasmus's departure.
Correct.
And I haven't seen any urgency to fill it. Now, do you think there's been structure around filling it, or is it just this gaping hole that needs to be filled?
I can't answer that. I don't know what goes on, in the hierarchy of the union. But yeah, with hindsight, a lot of us were critical of Rassie, and it was sort of, okay, we're not going to miss him and things like that. But I think a lot of us are now coming to realize that he put a lot of brilliant structures in place. I mean, if you look at the feeder schemes that are coming through in Cape Town, the universities, the clubs, and that side of things, we should be creaming every competition with that kind of talent that we're producing. We've beaten the top teams in every conference this year, but we lose games that we should be winning. The question is, are the guys not motivated? Are they not fit? I don't know the answer. Maybe Western Province Rugby can give us some answers. But I know that my guys, and I can only talk for my guys are tired of sort of being average, and everybody sort of being content with being average. We don't want to be average anymore. We've got the talent to be much better than average. And of course, the issue of keeping our talent in Cape Town, that's another story altogether. When you get told, well, we don't have money to keep talent in Cape Town, but you find money to buy talent from elsewhere, it just doesn't gel. And once again, your answers get treated, you get treated like a naughty schoolboy. Well, you've got no right to ask us those kind of questions. As long as you toe the line with us, we'll look after you. You'll be on our team. But if you start asking uncomfortable questions, well, we're going to isolate you. Be that as it may, we happy being isolated if that's what they want.
Okay, Julian, I've just got a point in there because you bring up quite a few points now. I don't want any of them to get lost here. Just on the point, I wrote a post on my site last year about the Stormers being a very South African problem. Again, I think we have expectations of this team. As fans, we look at them in the best light first and foremost. There's no way that any serious province fan. I can't speak this morning.
It's quite the tongue twister.
No, but you know what? I keep thinking, don't say province, must say Stormers, and it confuses me a bit.
It's okay. We understand.
Personally, I just wish it was Western Province finished,
full stop,
done, full stop. Anyway,
100. Well, that's another issue itself. Yeah.
Yeah, we have expectations because we look at how good these players are. We have tremendous faith in them, and then when it doesn't get rewarded, we think like, okay, cool, but it's actually not kind of good enough. And I think if you look at the Springboks as well, they've got amazing player talent, amazing strength, all the resources in the world, and the number 10 puts the ball on the boot to give it to the opposition fullback. That, I think, breaks a lot of our rugby souls. And I think, getting back to the point of you said about the union itself perhaps not being wanted to ask such questions, I think it's very much their responsibility to look at it from the fans' perspective, because after all, if there's no fans, there's no team, essentially. And I think they'll definitely agree to that. So when it comes to the fact that it's like running a car in third gear. Why do you go and buy a sports car if you're never going to actually get anything out of it? It's just all for show. So
yeah, well, I mean, I think it was on. In fact, it was on your show the other day that Peter de Villiers made the comment about province rugby being like a Ferrari stuck in traffic. Which was quite right, and my analogy goes a bit further. Maybe it's the traffic cops that are causing the problem.
Well, there we go. Maybe there's traffic cops in the system. So what is holding it back? It frustrates me a little bit. But then you brought up another point about they don't want to hear the questions. So how I'd like to go and maybe put this to the union itself one day is that at what stage is there an interaction? In this day and age, there's so many different platforms. Where is the fan's voice coming into this? Now, obviously. they don't want 1,070 rants on Facebook saying you guys are cuck, play this guy, play that guy. That's that's going to help nobody. But I think that there has to be a forum at some stage where it's like, okay, why is this guy being brought in? Why is he never getting the ball? I think small things like this. I think because if rugby is so professional,
and to explain the thought process behind it.
Yeah.
You know, I'm not saying Elton Jantjies is a bad player. He's not a bad player. He's a good player. But was there any thought process given to bringing him into a defensive structure when his strength or his attacking abilities?
Well, exactly.
The same goes for Jaco Tauta. You know, a great attacking fullback, but in a back line that's predominantly asked to be defensive.
Yeah, because then you got these guys in two minds. Because let's be honest, neither of those players have done any sort of justice to their abilities this year. They've actually looked out of sorts.
Exactly right. Exactly right. I mean, and taking it even one step further, you got a guy like Alistair Coetzee, whose hands are tied to a degree because it's been agreed that Jantjies is going to get a certain amount of starting time, whether he's performing or not.
Yeah.
Now, who makes these kind of deals?
Exactly. And now, when you said that you know, the board's obviously in control of these things, how savvy are they actually in a rugby sense? Like, these questions have to be asked when you're going on a string of these things that don't make a lot of sense to us.
Yeah, you know, as I mentioned to you yesterday, I was invited down to Cape Town, and I had a lot of things explained to me. Some of them made absolute sense, no question about it.
Yeah.
But the minute I questioned anything, and didn't just sort of yes sir, no sir, three bags full sir, toe the line.
Yeah.
I was told, you know, go talk to the coaches. You know nothing about rugby, etc., etc., etc. So the whole mindset is, well, we're happy to accommodate you if you fall into our little sort of Yahoo category. But other than that, you know what, we'll rather just part company.
Do you think that attitude that they take from that is like kind of blocking off? Do you think like the kind of administrators are blocking themselves off from the coaches because they're not connected, or they just want to just alienate us from it?
To me, you know, one of the sure signs of being incompetent is surrounding yourself with yes people, and blaming everybody else.
Yeah.
It's hell of a easy to blame somebody else for decisions that they've had no say in. It's also very easy for them to turn around and say, oh, what kind of supporters are you? You know, this cradle to grave and all this kind of stuff. I've been supporting Western Province for nearly 50 years. And you know, there's no question that I'm going to support anybody else or anything like that. And just because I've got uncomfortable questions doesn't mean that I'm a traitor. And just because my guys are uncomfortable or want to ask questions or want answers doesn't mean they aren't good supporters. It's a lot more difficult being an emotional supporter than just being you know, buying into the, well, we're just a young team and we're this and we're learning and wah 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 wah. Real supporters, and excuse my language, get peed off and don't sleep at night when you know that you can do better. That is a sign of a real supporter. Not these guys that say, oh well, better luck next week, let's move on. You know, that's what they want in their camp. We're not like that, and we're never going to be like that.
Well, Julian, look, these are all good points, and again, I think you know, a 10-minute discussion will never unearth everything. The reason I really wanted to get you online today was that, you know, I do a lot of stuff on Twitter. I think it's a great way of gauging the sort of general consensus amongst fans, and I've just noticed in the last 2 years, and this, you know, I've got no agendas whatsoever when it comes to the team I support. I just want them to win. Because I tell you what, I much prefer drinking beer with a winning team than drinking beer with a losing team. And you also, like, I'm just tired of the same old excuse. I'm tired of the same old conversations, and I'm tired of people becoming very pessimistic about my team. And that's the way I see it. I mean, I instinctively I say the words "my team." So the points you raise are pretty good in that. Is there a structure that is sort of hindering these guys? Because it has to be something along those lines. And if so, is the union taking any steps towards it? Now, every single story has two sides, and perhaps there is a space for us to bring someone from Western Province Union itself onto the show one day. But I think you make
that would be great. I don't know if any of them are in the talking to me kind of mood at the moment, but yeah, I'd be very chuffed to do that. You know, it's easy to just carry on regardless, and nothing is going to change if
Yeah.
you don't fix it. I think they need to take a leaf out of their own sort of respect campaign that I know you quite big on, and
We'll talk about that later.
And respect us as well. You know, we,
Yeah.
just because we're asking questions doesn't make us bad oaks.
Yeah, and I think also just because we're asking questions, it doesn't mean we're negative as well. I think another point that comes into this for me is that we'd want this because we want our team to succeed. And if we want our team to succeed, then their product succeeds. So in a business term, it's one of those kind of all-in uniques, win-win things. So, Julian, we are going to keep you in the mixer. I think what I need to do is actually unpack this as far as creating little just discussion points. I think if I write something about this, because right now I think we all, as passionate fans, might not make the most sense in a sort of collective way. I think if we can highlight a couple of issues, and I think going forward we should probably have someone
and
voice
tackle them
opinions.
one at a time. That would be great.
One thing that seemed to come out of
Absolutely.
today is that it kind of doesn't feel representative of the people, the union at the Mo.
Yeah.
And so if we can kind of
Correct.
concentrate on forums where people feel represented without it being like a big Twitter troll, or as you said, like just a load of Facebook
that's
comments,
terrible.
then we could work on something
Exactly
constructive
right,
to
yeah.
feel
Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
Because what it comes down to is the fact that we know our team is a whole lot better than this. You know, we know that.
That's the bottom line, and you know, underachieving and why. Let's get the answers and sort out the problem.
Yeah, and let's stop playing the blame game. We're all adults here, and let's just be the best that we can
Yeah.
for one united team, which we all seem to love.
100%.
Cool, Julian. Well, thanks so much for participation. Sorry, my words are not going so well. I need some
Thank
more
you.
water.
Thank you very much for our participation, Julian.
There we go, Sean. From now on,
You
you're
sound,
going
you, sound
to be
like you sound like the Cape Crusaders there with your no teeth.
Julian, thanks so much. We'll definitely be in touch in the future, and I'll put this onto SoundCloud so you can share this with your friends
Guys,
as well.
thanks very much
Good job.
for the opportunity. Take
Thanks for your
care.
thoughts. Cool,
Cheers,
nice
mate.
one. That's
Bye-bye.
Julian Rod, passionate just like us. Getting back to back to the 12-inch Tuesday here, Sean. Some good points, but we'll come back on that later.
Yeah, definitely. We've got a whole season to discuss that.
Gusto, Disco Revenge, bringing out the classics today. Listen to Blogz on Balls. We're coming back with Keegan Kruger. All you need to know about football and what's happening around right now in that particular sport. So we just talked about the Stormers with a rather passionate fan and a man who heads up an independent, non-affiliated supporters club. Sure, I think definitely something to talk about in future. I think I'll actually write about this. Like some decent points. You know, you don't want to be a guy who's just ranting in the wind and having I would do this, I would do that. He had some pretty decent points, I thought.
I did, and look at and they crop up often. It's
Yeah.
just there's generally a very general feeling that down the years there's been lots of papering over of the cracks of problems with Western Province rugby.
Yeah.
And these need to be aired. They're
A
common,
lot
need to be aired.
of it needs to be a surgery, perhaps. Speaking of cropping up, we've got Keegan on the line. Keegan,
Hi there.
how's it? Good to have you back.
Yes,
course.
been a good one. Good weekend.
Yeah, I did enjoy mine as well. Very, very good. Stormers won. That's all that makes me happy.
Won. Stormers won. Ajax got a point against Pirates.
very
United
good.
one step
Huge
closer
Point that.
Yeah.
to the title. So yeah, can't complain. Been a
Fantastic.
good sporting weekend.
Ongelooflijk. Keegan, we have you on the line for obviously the football. Now, did you notice that Sean and I had 2 headlines for football today?
I was actually amazed. Really, I almost fell off my chair here,
Yeah,
busy doing
2
some
headlines.
work while listening to it.
I'm not enjoying this thing that I might be a dunce on football.
You might be a dance on football. Sorry, Sean.
It's this reputation I've garnered. I have not earned it.
I'll take full credit for that. I have misrepresented you. Okay.
Uh,
So what's going on with this round ball stuff? Then?
Yeah, what's happening with kickball here, Keegan?
The kickball. Well, the kickball's looking quite interesting, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
We'll start off with a bit of the EPL.
Please call it the English Premiership. This is not cricket. This is not the IPL.
And you have more than 140 characters on the show.
You
don't
were
there we go,
you were
so
a letter skew of being axed forever.
we? Just one lull short.
But
of being
understand,
done.
the IPL came way after that.
No, the IPL came before the name changed to EPL. I'll have you know.
It's actually the BPL, the Barclays Premier League. So let's get this right. Right, we had quite a big one. We had the big Newcastle Sunderland derby this weekend. And it was marred with a bit of crowd trouble right after the game, which was, I wonder if you guys had to look at some of the videos. Not a pretty sight. It looked like Thatcher all over again. Thatcher was involved there. So yeah, it wasn't pretty. Clubs coming out today actually saying that there is fans caught on video and they will be serving live bands. So we'll see what comes out of it. But as it's so difficult to monitor these things, I don't really see too much really happening more or anything more than that happening.
But like a life band's a death sentence to those guys. Their life is pie, gravy, pints, and football.
In the northeast of England, especially.
That's it.
In the north of England, that's big. That'll hurt you.
You can't even get like surround sound 3D TV and stuff. That's never going to have the same thing.
No, not at all.
Big deterrent.
QPR lost again, which is Harry's coming out busy. He's busy worrying about what are these players going to do next year if they're not even if they're not going to stay up. Who's going to pay these wages? What's going to happen with QPR? So there's a bit of a worry there.
Yeah, chances of a domino effect there, like dropping not just one division down the years if they go down this year.
Quite possibly. A guy like, if you look at a guy like Remy or even Cesar, like really those wages must be absolutely ridiculous to keep them at that club.
Because the thing is, it's not just even people in the team as well. There's a guy like Luke Young. He's on lots of money. That's the guy that can't even make the squad. There's guys on loan in Qatar, I think who's the striker on loan in Qatar? Cisse.
You got Cisse out in Qatar, yes.
He's still on their books. That's someone that has to be dealt with.
That's correct. You've even got a guy like Jermaine Genius who came on for free.
Absolutely.
But he's got massive wages on him. Bobby Zamora's on 90 a week. That's what we've heard. So, it's a lot of
90 a week to play for QPR.
90 a week to play for QPR. See, money does talk.
No, it seems you can buy relegation as well. You've proven that you can buy the title.
Fernandez has proved us that you can buy relegation. You'll be happy, Ben. Arsenal picked up a good win.
You bet they did, yeah. And they're waiting for Man United. They're waiting for Man United here.
The last 5 minutes of the game, they wrapped up 2-3 goals. So it's good. Good for them. Good.
Am I right in saying that they'll play 3 games before Spurs play the next Premiership match?
I think you are correct, to be honest with you.
Because obviously this is that time in the season where Spurs look like they're going to get into Europe, and then they just don't.
There's never an easy game in April.
Yeah, but talk about a scheduling cock-up that Arsenal can sneak in some points here, and suddenly, look at that, they're 4th.
Well, if you look at the table at the moment, Arsenal are 3rd. I mean, they've got on 59 points. They've got the same amount of games as Spurs. Spurs is 1 behind. Chelsea's the only one really with a point and a game behind Arsenal. Yeah. So, that it's still wide open, that 4th spot. You've got Everton, who are on 55 points. Played 32 games. They're still in the running. I mean, it's Arsenal-Everton tonight. Yeah. Everton get a win there. It's wide open again. So it's really exciting time. I must say, the battle for 4th and the battle for relegation is something worth watching in the next coming weeks.
Sorry, yes, I totally agree. I was not answering another email. Okay, Keegan, obviously the English Premier League is a huge focus, but just going on to Europe at the moment, what is this talk about Paris Saint-Germain claiming that they've got Rooney?
Oh, has the silly season started already? You
heard the story, right? An ex-director of the club, who just so happens to own a media company, has gone out and said that they've definitely got Rooney for next summer.
Can I tell you what happened there? They took all the big names in the world, wrote the names on a piece of paper, put in a hat, and they put all the big teams with money and put them in a hat, and then they just drew a player and a team out, and then I wrote a story about it.
That sounds scientific.
Pretty easy at the end of the day. No, listen, the silly season, you're going to get a lot of these reports coming around now. Apparently there's still a rift with Fergie. Then there's big rumors that Falcao is coming to United and it's going to be a swap deal for Hernandez. And, these rumors, it's really difficult to really comment on it because most of it is absolutely just a bunch of hogwash which papers just want to... it's just trying to sell a paper at the end of the day.
That's the thing. I find that the most frustrating thing about football and trying to follow it is with the transfer news is that you just can't tell the wood from the trees from awful tabloid journalism, awful tabloid mongering.
It's like
the lot.
It's like believing the tabloids here about the Oscar Pistorius case. He's back in. He's back in training. He's running away. He's doing this.
All this nonsense, or how John Smith was going to be at the Stormers.
Yeah,
you remember that story?
That was another shocker.
It's not alien to this country, definitely.
It's crazy. I must say that Ryan, that Wallace wrote a piece on, about football fans being sheep. I mean, unfortunately, you get the gullible fans, you get the gullible supporters at any little, sniff. They sniff something on the tabloid, and they run wild with it, and. It's most of the time just to sell a paper, and for us fans that actually follow the sport, it gets a bit annoying after a while.
Well, you never know who to believe, unless
you don't know,
unless you're on this show listening to you, obviously.
Well, hopefully that we get some credibility our way.
Huge credibility, Keegan. I know lots of people that talk about you and your input in the show. When I say lots, it's a quality for you. But Keegan, moving on to FA Cup now. Obviously, the semis were played over the weekend. No surprises there, really.
To be honest, not really.
And I mean that with all respect to Chelsea fans.
I wasn't sure which Chelsea team was going to rock up, to be honest with you. I don't know what they're actually, what they're trying to get out of the season. Is it the fourth spot? Is it the Europa Cup? Is it the FA Cup?
Is it the death of Benitez?
Is it the death of Benitez? You don't know. A lot of people have criticised United, especially last season when we sort of threw the Europa Cup away and we just played a weakened side, and we got knocked out, and we lost the Premiership in the final day, or in the final few seconds of the Premiership season. People said, "Yeah, you threw away 2 cups and you walked away with nothing." But at least there was some sort of direction where they wanted to go. And I'm not too sure Chelsea have that direction yet. What do they want? Do they want that Europa Cup? Do they want that 4th spot? It's not guaranteed yet to make that Champions League spot yet. So
yeah,
City have sort of, they cemented 2nd place.
Yeah.
Mancini needs a trophy to stay in his job. And that still doesn't guarantee his job. So I expected City to want that trophy a bit more. Good result for Wigan. Hopefully we see a fairy tale there that they get to stay up and possibly win a trophy. And yeah, that's about it for the FA Cup for me.
Well, yeah, money on City. Good on Wigan getting that far. Millwall almost, obviously got to the semis, but they've always got bar fighting to go back into.
They were fighting in the stands during the game, so at least it looks like they won the punch-up.
No surprise there. Green Street Hooligans wasn't just a fantasy role with Frodo in it.
It's not out of character with Millwall fans.
Definitely
not at all.
not.
So Keegan, just to wrap up on the other leagues, looks like Juventus good to win the Italian league. They've just
done and dusted.
Yeah, done and dusted. In Spain, Barcelona, they're still way ahead, huh?
Pretty much done and dusted there as well.
French, Paris Saint-Germain, same deal. Bayern Munich in Germany.
Real preponderance of one-horse races going into the exciting part of the season.
Did you just say preponderance?
I did say preponderance. I think it's the wrong word.
You show me up every week. I don't care what that means. I don't care if that means shoeing a horse. You've just used the biggest word the show's ever seen.
I think that's incorrect as well. Please don't whip the thesaurus on me.
I need to start looking up words for next week now.
Oh,
anyway, there are a lot of one-horse races.
I know. Yeah. Unlike the SA conference.
The PSL is still, I think, open-ish. I mean, there's only 7 points between first and second.
Open for what? Bribes or just better results?
You never know with Ivory at the top. Yeah, we've got the relegation is the big fight because the Cape sides are still at the bottom, but Ajax actually got a good result against Pirates during the week. They play Black Leopards tonight, so if they get a win there, they probably one step away from safety. Well, they should be safe. Yeah, and I think the other leagues are pretty much wrapped up if you look at it. It's basically all relegation fighting, which comes down to that, and no one really cares about La Liga, who's getting relegated and who's going up.
Any news on my favourite managerial story, the Chippy United saga?
Don't start on Chippy United.
They have a new coach.
They have a new one. Have they hired him before?
No.
Well, I left my phone on silent at the time, so I'm not sure.
No, they have not hired him before. He's a coach from the NFD, Harrison, and it looks like we'll see how that goes. He is full of praise to say that they will stay up. He has what it takes to keep them up.
When was he hired?
About 2 days ago.
2 days ago. And they're still in the relegation zone. How long will they keep their patience at Chippy United?
the manager, the owner has said he has full faith in him, in the manager, just like he told the last 5 managers.
The death knell, the backing of the board.
Yeah, so we'll see where that comedy goes. It's one way down for me. I don't see them coming up at all. They're actually in a QPR state as well. They got guys like Benjani, who used to play in the Premier.
That's right. Yeah.
Playing for them, massive wages. Don't ask me what that club's going to do if they go down, because surely that owner is going to want to start pulling out.
Well, Keegan, speaking of ends, we're unfortunately going to have your segment to the end now, chipper and all. Because we've got to get Sport Billy, and he used to have an hour. He's now got like 40 minutes tops at the moment, and he's meant to be our big draw card. Keegan, first-time listeners, where can they find more of you on the world of the internet?
You can catch me on Twitter at Keegan Kruger, or you can follow the blog on @thepunditssa or www.thepundits.co.za.
Great, Keegan. Thanks so much as always. We've noticed that we actually research our stuff now. We're asking you better questions. Let that not go unnoticed. Keegan is back with us next Tuesday talking the football again. We're going to go back into our tunes. Oh, this one. No, wrong mouse.
Just a big shout out to Sean. Good luck for your Wolves side this evening. It's a big game.
Ooh, that is a big game. Don't speak to me about those guys. They make me nervous.
Guys, seriously, tweet each other if you're going to get it so in-house. Keegan, thanks so much. Catch you back next week.
Cheers, guys.
We've got DJ Chus and Will I. Straight after this, standing by, we've got Sport Billy, and we're going to talk about Sport Willie of the Week. I think Chipper United could be in the mix there. We're also going to talk Con of the Week, and then we're getting into our discussion for the week with Sport Billy. Is live sport dead? All coming up right after this. Listen to Blogz on Balls.